Okay, so get this, listeners. We are diving deep into a fascinating topic today.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at Nepal. And get this, there's actually a growing movement to bring back their monarchy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild considering they got rid of it back in 2008, officially abolished it.
Exactly right. Abolished it completely. And now, all these years later, there's a resurgence of this pro-monarchy sentiment.
It's really something, and we have this great article here called International Media's Perspective on Nepal's Monarchy Movement and the Return of the King.
Catchy title.
It is, and it really dives into all these different angles, like, is Nepal really going to go back in time?
Yeah, like, are they really going to crown a king again? Or is this just a
blip.
a blip? Yeah, a little wave of nostalgia for the past.
Exactly.
So that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
What's interesting is that the whole world is watching this unfold, right? This isn't just some internal Nepalese thing.
Right. It's international news, and everyone is covering it. But the way they're covering it is so different.
Yeah.
It's crazy how different their perspectives are. It's like they're looking at the same event, but through totally different lenses.
Yeah, like you've got Western media outlets like the BBC and the Guardian.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Totally. And they're really focused on like Nepal's internal struggles. They're highlighting the economic problems, the corruption, and how that might be fueling this nostalgia for the monarchy.
Right. It's like that whole things were better back in the day kind of thinking.
Exactly. And for them, it's often framed within this democracy versus authoritarianism kind of debate.
Right. Like, is a monarchy even compatible with modern ideas of democracy?
Exactly. But then you look at Indian media like the Times of India and the Hindu, and their coverage is all about the geopolitics of it all.
Ah, so India's looking at it strategically.
Absolutely. They're worried about Nepal's position between India and China and how a monarchy could shift the balance of power in the region.
That makes sense. Nepal's right in the middle of those two giants.
Exactly. And the article even mentions how India is concerned about the potential rise of Hindu nationalism under a monarchy, which could spill over into India.
Oh, wow. So they're thinking about the potential social and political impacts, too.
Absolutely. It's this fascinating mix of internal politics and international relations all tangled up together.
So we've got the international perspective, but what about the man himself, former King Jayendra?
Oh, yeah. He's a key player in all this.
Right. He's been making all these public appearances lately, going to temples, festivals, cultural events, you name it.
He's definitely been visible.
Yeah. So is he just being a dutiful former king, paying his respects? Or is this like a calculated comeback tour?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And the article actually gives us some clues. Some analysts suggest he's definitely testing the waters for a return, seeing how much support is out there.
Right, like gauging public opinion.
Exactly. But there's another interesting detail. The article points out he's mostly attending events with a strong religious or cultural significance.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like he's tapping into a deeper sense of national identity rather than explicitly campaigning for political power.
So it's a more subtle approach, maybe appealing to people's emotions and cultural ties.
Right. It's like he's saying, I'm still here. I'm still connected to the soul of Nepal.
That's really clever. But let's say he does want the throne back. Can he actually pull it off? I mean, is that even possible?
Well, the article cites some analysts from Reuters and Al Jazeera who say that a full restoration of the monarchy faces some major hurdles.
Like what kind of hurdles?
Well, constitutionally, it would require a two-thirds majority vote in parliament, and right now, Nepal's political scene is pretty fragmented.
Right. There are lots of different parties and factions all vying for power.
Exactly. So getting that kind of overwhelming support for a monarchy seems pretty unlikely.
And it's not just about the legal and political stuff, right? Like, Nepal's society has changed a lot since the monarchy was abolished.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole generation of young Nepalese who have only ever known a republic.
Right. They have no lived experience of what it was like to have a king.
So it's not just about turning back the clock. It's a whole different ballgame now.
It makes you wonder if those calling for a monarchy are thinking about what it would actually mean in today's world.
And the article brings up a really interesting point. It says that international media is drawing comparisons to other countries that have grappled with similar situations.
Like what kind of situations?
Well, they point to Afghanistan's attempts to restore its monarchy, which ultimately failed.
Oh, yeah. That's a cautionary tale for sure.
Definitely not the example you want to follow. But then there's Cambodia, where the monarchy actually coexists with a democratic system.
So is that a possible model for Nepal, like a king, but with limited powers?
That's a question a lot of analysts are asking. Cambodia's monarchy is largely ceremonial. They have a king, but the real political power lies with the elected government.
So it's more like a symbol of national unity and tradition.
Exactly. And whether that kind of arrangement would satisfy the pro-monarchy sentiment in Nepal is a whole other debate.
It makes you wonder if maybe that's a compromise that could work, appease the royalists while still maintaining a democratic framework.
It's definitely something to think about, but it also raises questions about what role a monarchy would play in a modern democracy.
Right, like what purpose would it serve beyond symbolism?
Exactly. And how would you balance the power between the king and the elected government?
So many questions. Like Nepal is at a crossroads trying to figure out its future.
Exactly. And while a full-blown return to the monarchy might be a long shot.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very likely right now.
Right. But this whole movement is clearly a sign that something's not working in the current system.
Yeah, there's definitely some underlying dissatisfaction that's fueling this.
Absolutely. And the real question is, if Nepal doesn't bring back the monarchy, what needs to change to address those concerns?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's one that the Nepalese people are going to have to answer to themselves.
It's a question of how they want to move forward as a nation.
Do they stick with the republic they created or try to reinvent their past?
It's a fascinating situation and one that we'll be watching closely.
And for our listeners out there, what do you think needs to happen in Nepal to achieve stability and address the concerns that are driving this movement?
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's definitely something worth pondering.
It is. And on that note, we'll leave you to contemplate the future of Nepal.
And the role of monarchy in the 21st century.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.